It's an honor to be here again. It's such an esteemed group of people. Thank you for bringing our film Sold to Dubai, Raza and Rami. And soon it'll be in Hungary. Thank you to Gabor. And we made the film really to be used as a weapon of light to spread awareness about child trafficking, which is happening in every country in the world. We filmed our film in Nepal and India, where trafficking is a huge problem. Pakistan, India, and Nepal, according to Geneva Global, have 80% of the world's slaves in those three countries. What happened to me when I made the film was I went to quite a few NGOs to research, to ground the film in truth and detail. I met 2,000 children who were trafficked, and they're the reason I keep showing up here. They were from 9 to 18 years old. I remember the very first NGO I went to was in a red light area called Kidipur. It was an NGO called Apni Aap. And my first interview with a survivor who was staff at Apni Aap, this woman was telling me about how she got out of the brothel. A taxi driver had fallen in love with her, and he courted her in the brothel. He never touched her. He visited her every week, and he asked her to marry him. And when she consented, he bought her freedom. And while she was telling me this story, about 15, 20 feet from me was a 10-year-old girl who was unconscious with a very high fever, shaking on a bed that had no mattress. And she kept assuring me there's an ambulance coming to get her. I was there probably 20 minutes interviewing her. And when we left, the child was still there, unconscious, without an ambulance having come. And I don't know if this child was someone who had been raped in a brothel. You know, often children are raped in brothels and then they're stitched up and raped again. They're sold as virgins at a very high price, and the brothels stitch them up 10 times often to pretend that they're still virgins many times to make a lot of money. So I don't know if this child was a daughter of a prostitute or if she in fact had been raped herself. Every night these girls are raped 10, 20 times. So I'm just here presencing those children. And literally my heart, you know, I've been to 2 wars as a filmmaker. My heart broke meeting 2,000 children who were sex slaves and who had been rescued in India and Nepal. And that's why I keep coming here and going wherever I can to serve them, to help them. So our film Sold has really, you know, the GSN has given it its endorsement, so thank you for that. I think that's going to mean a lot of things going forward. And what I'm doing personally with the film is using it as a tool to raise funds to free these children who have been rescued, not the ones who are still enslaved in the brothels. In India, there are 20 million sex workers, 16 million forced against their will into sexual enslavement. 40% are children between 9 and 18, so that's 6.4 million children sexually enslaved just in India. In the US, we don't know the real statistics. It's many hundreds of thousands. So this is a global issue, and I just wanted to kind of presence them, bring them into the room with us today, because this is life and death. You know, when I was in that room interviewing this staff person and that child was there, I understood immediately this is actually a war. We're fighting a war for human lives, for children, to protect them. These are all our children, as Kailash Satyarthi has said so eloquently. All these children are our children, and we have to take better care of them because they're our future. So what I found and committed to meeting all of these children in my heart was to help them to find a way. And I've spent a lot of time researching what are the ways that we can heal the inner fear that slavery creates. One of the most profound technologies is actually very ancient, and it comes from India. It is called Yoga Nidra, and there's a trauma-informed version of it called iRest. So in June, we have 2 people going to India to train 25 survivors of sex trafficking who are actually trained as dance movement therapists, and we're going to train them as iRest Yoga Nidra therapists, and we're training 10 in Nepal. And the 10 in Nepal are also, they were all trafficked into India, so they're fluent in Hindi and other languages. So with these 35 women, we're going to reach many thousands of survivors and help them kind of establish a core of inner peace so that they can sleep at night, so that they're not terrified, so that they can have a stable job, so that they can begin to trust and come back to life and relationship and connection to others. So this is one effort, and the other effort is vocational training. We've partnered with a group called Nest, formerly called Build a Nest, and in fact they're going in about 4 or 5 days. They're going to Calcutta and Nepal, to 5 NGOs and to 3 to 5 businesses that employ only sex trafficking survivors. They typically work very much in partnership. I don't believe in helping hand strikes again. You know, if you're going to do philanthropy, it must come from the ground up. It must come from where you're working. They must lead it. So they're creating partnerships with the nonprofits and with these businesses to bring global designers to create products. All these NGOs create products, but they have no way of really selling them, and they have no way of marketing them. So these efforts are very, very minimal. They don't help the NGO, they don't really help the survivors. But with Nest, we're bringing in global brand expertise, and hopefully we'll create an online portal for survivors of both sex trafficking and labor trafficking, so that they can sell online, but they'll also help them sell into global brand stores. Typically, Nest doesn't just double salaries of survivors, they multiply it by 5 times when they work with groups. So we have really good partners, and I'm really excited about the work ahead. And any suggestions you have for supporting this work are most welcome. We need foundational support, philanthropic support. And thank you for the support that SOLD has already gotten from the GSN, and I'm just really thrilled to be here. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I pass it on to Monsignor Sanchez, I had this discussion with Zakir Maqsood yesterday, who wanted to contribute his design and his fashion part with something like this that we were talking about, so you guys can connect later.
Yeah, that'd be
Monsignor Sanchez wanted to say something to what you had.
No, I want to thank your intervention, because really is one of the more important tragedies that we have today. And normally the people don't want to see the problem because it's a tragedy for the state, for the human dignity, for the freedom of the people, for all things. And when we try to speak about this, they try to not hear things. And this is our experience, especially when we try to speak with the politicians or the other leaders. Only the religious leaders are more sensible to say the truth about the question. But I am very, very happy of your intervention, and I want to remark the importance of the subject and the very important work that you do. I know one person of your group in Mexico, and I see the very important result that you can arrive. This is one thing. And the other is that just for this, we need to have models. And we think that the model of Sweden is one thing that we need to know more, because in the end, it's the first time in the history that we take the responsibility of the people to are the real cause of the problem, that is the people to create the market. The people to create the market is the people to go to these ladies normally, no? And for the first time, the model of Sweden penalized in a criminal form, and this criminalization rests in the CV, in the curriculum, that they are criminals because they do this, and they need to present this to his family and his tragedy and his profession. And we know the Chancellor of Sweden, that was the person to create this law, that today is in other countries, and she said that with this model, the prostitution have diminished in half, 50%. And for this thing, I think that we need to know these models that really are concretely work and have a victory for this form of slaves, especially in this case for prostitution, but also we can do for forced labor to have a model. Thank you. Really, I was very interested in observing.